Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to this high-level dialogue at Daring Cities 2022. My name is Cristina Garzillo. I'm Senior Coordinator at equitably European Secretariat, and today I'm moderating this panel on making climate justice a reality, a people-centered response to the climate emergency. Of course, the context of this session is a big challenge of our times. The transformation is not only an ecological and economic transition, it's also a social and cultural transition, and people are at the heart of this. The transition provides changes in people's thinking and behavior, and climate planning and action too often has been focusing mainly on technological solutions, but our lives are not only based on facts and figures. Climate response needs to be widespread. It needs to be equitable. And at the same time, all groups need to be included in all stages of the planning and of the decision-making processes. And their input, their imagination, their knowledge, the local knowledge, the indigenous knowledge is key in helping making climate justice a reality, preventing maladaptation and making urban areas more resilient. So today we have a very distinguished group of speakers lined up, and with so much expertise around this virtual table, I believe that the session will be very stimulating. But of course, we also want to interact with you because of this people-centered approach. So I would like to invite you to go to the slido.com and ahead of this session, we want your response on what are, in your perspective, the key elements of effective people-centered climate action. So we will see this during the course of the session. So while you are typing, I would like to dive straight in, and I would like to introduce you to our keynote speaker of today. Hannah Morrell, Scientific Coordinator of International Co-Sponsored Scientific Meeting on Culture, Heritage and Climate Change of ICOMOS, International Council on Monuments and Sites. She is Sustainability and Advocacy Lead at the Museum of London Archaeology. Thanks for joining us, Hannah, and you have a very special perspective on the role of culture and the role of heritage. And I would like to ask you, how can culture and heritage drive communities to respond to this climate emergency? Thanks a lot, Hannah. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Just sharing my slides. Can everyone see that? Perfect. So hello and thanks everyone who's joining us today, and thank you to ICLI for the invitation. I'm Hannah Morrell, the scientific coordinator, as was mentioned, of the ICSM, CHC and Sustainability and Advocacy Lead for MOLA, which is an independent research organization based in London. So I've got 10 minutes here, so I'm just going to dive straight in. The work I'll quickly introduce here today directly feeds into our intention to recommend a special report on culture and heritage for the 8th IPCC assessment report cycle. And these cycles take time. We've just seen the 3 working groups finalize their contributions to the 6th assessment report. So straight away, here you can see that this is a long-term effort and investment, and we're in it for the long haul. We also want to see culture and heritage recognized for its significant relevance to thinking about climate change and cities, which has received little attention so far. And so super quickly here for you all, what do I mean by heritage? Heritage covers a huge area, and it's a complex concept. A lot of people assume that it's about protected buildings or some form of material culture, but actually it spans across so much and is central to our ways of knowing, of reinventing ourselves. It's about processes, about legacies and practices. It's about reconciliations, peace and conflict, and working with communities to understand justices, values, and how the ongoing processes of extractive and exploitative empires, governments, and cities have and continue to have impact on people, local communities, and indigenous peoples. It's also about legacies from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on to future generations. And this includes both natural and cultural heritage, intangible and tangible. And I don't want to delve into this too much, but I will signpost you to a report in which we outline our understanding of culture and heritage. But what I do want you to take away is that at its core, heritage is about communities and their values. And actually those involved with culture and heritage, including understanding the past, can help unlock culture and heritage's potential for addressing climate challenges now and moving forward. And how are we going to do this? Well, one of the avenues is through this project, the co-sponsored meeting on culture, heritage, and climate change. The co-sponsors are UNESCO, the IPCC, and ICOMOS, with the IUCN and of course ICLEI as partners. This project has been in the works since at least 2017, with individuals such as Dr. Marcy Ruckman and Andrew Potts kicking off the project through a proposal for a co-sponsored meeting. By 2020, an agreement between the co-sponsors was in place with concept notes, partnerships, a team, and an SSC members, plus funding secured through the DBU. A meeting was to be held in the first instance in person in 2022, but that moved to virtual with the pandemic and was held over 5 days last December. So the aim of the meeting was to take stock of the state of knowledge regarding connections of culture and heritage with anthropogenic climate change, and to establish gaps in knowledge regarding these connections. We focused on knowledge systems, impacts, and solutions. 3 white papers focusing on these 3 themes were commissioned, and the 5-day conference dedicated a day each to these interconnected themes. Okay, so more to the point of what I'm here to talk about, the GRA, or the Global Research and Action Agenda on Culture, Heritage, and Climate Change. The GRA is one of 4 online reports so far produced as part of the ICSM project. And you see here the 3 other commissioned reports on the themes I mentioned earlier. And I've actually posted this on the WOVA platform as well in a community group called Resource Sharing. So you can find all the links to these over there. Okay, so this work has been a combined effort to draw out key high-level points raised during the December meeting. And I would urge you to think flexibly and creatively on each of the 42 messages. At the heart of the agenda, we collate evidence and case studies outlining the relevance of culture and heritage to climate discussions and highlight just how critical culture and heritage are to understanding, responding to, and creating action for climate change. We use different forms of evidence to highlight the importance of recognizing those different forms of evidence for decision-making and planning, which translates to equitable inclusion of diverse actors and groups, communities and peoples in research, practice, and decision-making, and just really understanding what recognition looks like. We also highlight the reality of inequity and inaccessibility and the need to identify how these inequalities are systematically reinforced and create barriers to credible and robust opportunities for meaningful transformations across mindsets, values, and systems. Now, before I go into these 3 points, it's worth thinking about the power of cities. First off, cities are heritage. They're literally layers of settlements built on top of each other, rich in archaeology and heritage sites, and span across the ages. They can tell, and they do tell us so much about the stories of the urban built environment and are sources of insight as to how humans have responded to and coped with environmental changes for millennia. Not only are cities melting pots and hubs for exposure to so many worldviews and cultures, but they're also the key to understanding how cultural and heritage dimensions of city life influence things like consumption patterns, degrees of adaptation and resilience and capacity, and so forth. Okay, so when we talk about cities being able to facilitate equitable inclusion of diverse knowledge systems, what that looks like is acknowledging that in recent years, if not more, the social fabric of spaces and places have been breaking and people are now feeling disempowered or neglected. We've seen strong divides emerge within and between communities across the world. And as a response to that, culture and heritage through placemaking, for example, could offer a means of reconnecting with people and creating more inclusive, diverse policies with initiatives that promote deliberation and people-centered approaches. And these sorts of practices offer better results in terms of sustainable growth and enriching lives. So next up, we need to absolutely tap into the wealth of knowledge, experience, and evidence that's held in people, groups, and communities. There are local communities and indigenous peoples who have been observing and understanding natural cycles and patterns across generations with sustainable mechanisms and approaches to help protect habitats, ecosystems, and industries. Not only are they well equipped to produce meaningful and effective options and solutions for transformative change, but they can offer ways to think across silos and holistically as well. The fact is that climate policy decision makers across government hierarchies need to work collaboratively and proactively across groups and communities and start acknowledging that the story is more powerful than the digits. So moving along quickly, recent reports, including the GRA on cities and climate change, recognize urban spaces as a powerful tool for sustainable development if well planned and managed. And we also know that through adaptation and mitigation at a city level, cities will make crucial contributions to national efforts aimed at fulfilling international climate change commitments. Also, just in terms of city governance, it's widely documented in research and practice that many of you involved in local government or positions of authority in cities are in a powerful position and have that power and justification to shape community inclusion and provide that leadership for action towards protecting the environment and working towards resilience. Authorities across cities and districts, for example, are in an ideal position to enable communities to make choices and manage collective concerns. But you also play a huge role in celebrating that diversity and distinctiveness in and across your own communities. Okay, so I know I've ran through this presentation, but it's literally a whistle-stop tour of what's in the GRA, which has case studies and examples from across the world to illustrate just how important culture and heritage are, not only for conversations about climate change, but also for decision-making and policy planning. But I just want to give a few ideas of what daring might look like for city governance. A daring city is one in which civil servants or local governments use their leadership and power for action towards increasing participation in democracy and working for that community cohesion. Democracy happens between elections. It happens when you create and work for good governance and provide inclusive initiatives that empower communities to be at the heart of decision-making. It starts by questioning routine procedures and creating those meaningful platforms for communities to work out and manage their collective concerns about the quality of their lives and their local environments. It's also about knowledge sharing and engaging with diverse groups and creating those connections and partnerships and building credibility and trust so that we can move towards better opportunities and reduce inequity, inequality, inaccessibility, and ultimately injustices. So heritage-oriented climate action and research provide these needed approaches for participation and collaboration, which open pathways to new forms of mutual respect and new forms of governance. And lastly, we need to build resilience. Understanding culture and heritage can help understand what is needed at a local level, identify those resilient strengths and gaps, build community awareness, and help understand potential options for resilience, such as what works and what doesn't at a community level. This includes exploring the role of culture and heritage in conversations about investing in, preventing, reducing, and managing risks. And it's these approaches that also make sure that research and data are conducted through co-production rather than extractive and unethical methods. So I leave with culture and heritage have so many answers for where we are today and how to move forward. And if you're not already thinking about culture and heritage in your work, start now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for this inspiring presentation and for highlighting the role of culture and heritage in climate action. And indeed, it's not about actually talking about old stones, but what is behind these stones, what is immaterial behind the stones, behind the know-how, the knowledge, the identity, the well-being. So thanks a lot for bringing this perspective. And indeed, eClay was involved in contributing to one of these GRA reports. Also, this makes me create a link to this European initiative, which is the new European Bauhaus, in which also eClay is involved, and that actually assures that this transition is not only sustainable, but is also beautiful and inclusive. So thanks again, Hannah. And after, let's say, this inspiration set out by Anna, I think we can now move to analyze a bit more in-depth initiative and local success stories about community engagement. So what I'm going to do now is to invite each of the speakers to contribute for a maximum of 5 minutes to make us understand better how initiatives and local activities can help raise awareness about climate change. So I would like to turn to our first initiative and speaker in this regard, and I would like to give the floor to Hayo Propovo, National Facilitator of the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative in Indonesia. We're talking about rainforests, which provide water, food, livelihood, and regulate our climate. And could you please highlight for us the activities of the coalition and how they help raise awareness about climate change and create support for climate and sustainability action? Thanks a lot. Hayo.
Thank you, Christina. So yeah, I'm from Indonesia. It's afternoon now. Let me share. Okay, so dear speakers, moderator, participants of this international seminar, it is great pleasure for me to speak at Daring Cities Local Government for Sustainability. The Interfaith Rainforest Initiative is an international multi-faith alliance that brings moral urgency and faith-based leadership to global efforts to halt and reverse tropical deforestation. It is a platform for all religious leaders and faith communities to work shoulder to shoulder with indigenous people, governments, civil society, and businesses on action that protect tropical forests and safeguard those that serve as their gardens. The initiative works globally to bring a moral voice on forest protection to international policymaking forums on environment, climate change, indigenous peoples issue, and sustainable development. The initiative is working through country programs in Brazil, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Indonesia, and Peru, 5 countries that contain more than 70% of the world's remaining rainforest. Rainforest is critical to combating climate change. Forests are among the only safe, proven natural solutions that exist to capture and store carbon. The protection, restoration, and sustainable management of forests offer the solid solution for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Relation with nature requires some knowledge, especially in the science of environment degradation, deforestation, and climate change. We have provided educational books and sermons, religious lectures from the views of each of the 6 religions in Indonesia: Islam, Protestant, Catholic, Hindu, Buddha, and Confucius, along with 5 guidebooks concerning the importance of protecting rainforests and climate change. Given that the climate crisis is rooted in a complex web of economic, social, and cultural factors, as well as belief systems, social attitude, and perceptions, it is worth considering how ethics impact our ability to address it. Making global human activity more sustainable requires a return to values, beliefs, and ethics that drive human beings and their relationship with the natural environment. For many people, these values and ethics will be inspired largely on their faith. Despite the great diversity of religions and beliefs, virtually all shares a common ethic based on harmony with nature and obligation to preserve it from the destruction. Responding to and tackling the climate change emergency require a robust engagement of all sectors and segments of society. FBOs, faith-based organizations, mobilize 3 of their resources for rainforest conservation and climate change. Firstly, religious guidance reflected in the daily life of people. Many of the world's religion contains teaching regarding the care of the earth, wise use of natural resources, working for the common good, social justice, and well-being for all, which speak to the 4 dimensions of sustainable development: environmental, social, economic, and cultural sustainability. Secondly, faith-based organization network and influence to policymakers. FBO is a sustainable institution, and in recent years, policymakers have begun to involve them in environmental conservation and natural resources management nationally and internationally. And the third, religious asset, where religious community around the world manages hundreds of billions of dollars and contribute a significant portion of investment portfolio that will influence financial services and business practices. FBO has begun recognized as a key player in eradicating poverty, improving public health, and protecting the environment through its assets, which include houses of worship, universities, school, hospital, lands, and cash. So that's, I think, my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ayu, for this presentation. And what I really enjoyed was this moral urgency with the faith-based approach, and using also people, indigenous people, as kind of as guardians of the rainforest. So thank you very much. And I would like now to talk about other guardians. And in this sense, I would like to call Juliette Oluoch, a Deputy National Coordinator of the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, Kenyan chapter, on behalf of the Yungo constituency to the UNFCCC. And Juliette, so we're talking about now also a very important topic, youth. So how can we include youth at all levels of governance, and how can we actually make use of their creative potential, the energy, the motivation of the youth in accelerating the climate emergency mode of action? Thank you, Juliette.
Thank you very much, Christina, and a very good afternoon, morning, evening to everyone from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Juliette Oluoch, as I have been introduced, and in the interest of time, kindly allow me to jump in right into my thoughts on this topic. So first, when we talk about youth, then what rings in my mind is the need to leverage inclusive and transboundary meaningful partnerships with young people, now particularly that climate change is a common problem and it transcends across all borders. So there is need to include the voices of youth at every step of the way. But we also know that climate action is necessary to combat an existential threat, which is not without cost. So in this context of a just transition, action plans must therefore not just create winners or losers or include economic inequalities, but it must be fair and create new opportunities for those who have been negatively impacted, paying attention to the women and girls. And we also know that the opportunity for young people to engage in climate governance and also to participate in some of these decision-making processes largely depends on political, socio-economic, and cultural context. And I'm really glad that Hannah has just talked about how culture really affects response to climate action. But we see that now all these social norms in many parts of the world really result in multiple forms of discrimination of young people and in climate action. Take for instance, right here in Kenya, we have the Maasai community. We have young girls and women coming from these places who really face the wrath of climate change, coming from areas that are disadvantaged geographically, but they don't really get to be involved in this process due to cultural barriers and the belief that women are not to be involved in such serious talks, quote unquote. So there is a strong evidence that young people participate in formal, institutional, and climate processes at a very lower rate as compared to older citizens around the world. But young people are also disenfranchised as a result of this challenge. Their voices are not heard. But we also know that to every problem, there is definitely a solution. So meaningful youth participation and leadership requires that young people and young people-led organizations are given opportunities, the capacities, and they also benefit from an enabling environment and relevant evidence-based programs and policies at all levels. And I'm going to give an example of the amazing work that we as a Yongo are doing with equitable Africa, the kind of partnership that is very intentional and strategic in ensuring that we integrate the voices of young people in climate change. It's also important to realize that young people's right to participate and to be included in democratic processes and practices is very vital to ensure the achievement of internationally agreed development goals and to refresh the development agenda. So just to give an example from the Malmo summit that was held sometimes in May, we had voices from the global south, and being one of those young people privileged to attend the summit, I was able to share this with some of the policymakers in my space and to think about what kind of practices can the city of Nairobi be able to adapt or to borrow from the city of Malmo. And this kind of engagement just also shows that, you know, engaging young people in a strategic way can also come up with fruits because we are able to share this knowledge and even add a bit of creativity to what we get to see. So the promotion of an enabling environment, say legal frameworks, policies, and plans for young people's participation in a broad range of processes and areas such as the public administration, as far as you know, climate change is concerned, peace building environments at local and national levels is very critical. Again, it is important to promote young people's skills and capacity to actively participate in decision-making processes as far as climate change is concerned, including local, national, and global processes. So this can be done through leadership trainings, where we get to try to integrate the voices of young people in such trainings and get to equip them and build on their skills. It is more of a mentorship, because really it wouldn't make sense to have a really old generation who are very conversant with climate change, but the real future of the planet really have no idea what is going on in the climate change space. So that kind of mentorship is very necessary to involve young people in. We're also I would also say it's important to promote the voices of young women and their participation in the current climate change processes. As we all know, and it has always been said, that women are most vulnerable to climate change. They face the wrath of climate change, not just economically, but also socially, where we even have girls dropping out of school because they can't access the schools themselves. Right here in Kenya, we have areas where flooding basically prevents these young people from going to school. But now it is important that we have their voices represented in such negotiations. Now, I would like to really point out the work that equitable is doing in recognizing the valuable and creative contribution that young people can make to climate and biodiversity action. They have always pushed for more ambitious climate and biodiversity commitments at the local level. So through this platform, we've been able to be engaged through projects and initiatives and workshops such as this today, where we get to share our thoughts and our voices to world leaders and different decision makers, something which is not very easy for many youths, as we have seen in the recent past. It's not easy to get hold of these people who make very critical decisions about our own future. But through these conferences, we are able to air out our thoughts and our voices on the same. So lastly, let me just touch on the my thoughts on the Glasgow Climate Pact as a young person who got to follow some of the outcomes of COP26 virtually. So I think the Glasgow Climate Pact really did not capture the emergency mode in as much as it recognized the need for multi-level cooperation and action to accelerate the implementation of the Paris Agreement towards a low carbon future, and also emphasizing the urgency of reaching net zero by 2050 and calling for more ambitious action plans by 2022. So the views on the pact's success are really divided, as we've had in a lot of conversations, but the COP presidency only got the pact passed by asking some to make sacrifices and others to accept smaller victories in what the COP president claimed was an overall balanced agreement. However, the issue with climate change is that it is the result of profound historical and ongoing imbalance. The call to end coal and fossil fuel subsidies, as well as to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius alive, has survived, albeit the critical conditions. Those hailing COP26 as a success, however, I think they really owe a debt of gratitude to developing world nations that accepted the pact while refusing to ask for the balance on climate change to be paid in full for the time being. So in my own views, I think COP27 is an opportunity to echo some of the things that were not achieved at the COP26 and trying to look at it from long-term kind of perspective, where we think of how to critically, first of all, involve young people in such processes right from the initiation stage, and not just having young people coming in, you know, at the last stages, so you just call them and tell them this is what we want you to do, but try to kind of intentionally get their views on some of these issues. The African COP, as it is called, is very important to us. It is a chance for us to really see that some of the dreams that Africa has are able to be discussed in a more strategic way. Without really going further, kindly let me just say that the more I see our commitment and activism, the more confident I am that we will win. And together with your help, our decision makers and world leaders present on this call today, thanks to your effort, we can and we must beat this threat and create a cleaner, safer, greener world for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juliette, for this very energetic intervention. And it's quite clear the role of the youth and how young people must be involved in critical decisions about their future and the future of their communities, and gain this active role in addressing the climate emergency, but in general, the environmental, the social, and the cultural crisis. And it's not only about privileged youth, but all types of youth, the vulnerable, the fragile, the woman. Thanks a lot for pointing all these aspects to us. I would like now to go more into the local initiatives and activities. And I would like to kindly ask Ahmad Zabri Mohamed Sarajuddin, Director of the Urban Services Department of Seberang Perai Council in Malaysia, a very populous city in Malaysia. And I would like to ask you, how is your city capitalizing the co-benefits of climate action to implement policies that actually holistically address both climate and cultural crisis in a just and social manner? So thanks a lot, Ahmad. The floor is yours and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the Secretariat for inviting Seberang Pride to be part during this 2022. It is our patience towards climate change and climate actions. All right. Seberang Pride, like many other cities, were complacent that our city are disaster-free until one day reality strike us. Just like normal human being, we are also need evidence for us to believe. We don't have faith just like that. We need evidence for us to believe. Until one day in 2017, where Typhoon Doksuri hit us, and just within 2 months after the September 2017, in November, we have been hit by yet another typhoon that is known as Typhoon Damri. And yet another typhoon hit us in 2019. Then only we realized that climate change is real. It is now, it is here, and we need to take serious action against climate change, and we need to have our own climate action plan. Like what you can see on the screen, these are the evidence that some of the pictures that have been shown about the disasters happens in Seberang Pride. If people still don't believe in climate change, I always show them the pictures so that they can realize that climate change is real and is near us. That's why in Seberang Pride, we aspire to become a city of tomorrow, where we have all the strategic initiative for us to become a new cities. So with that, we have formed 5 new commitments. That is to uphold the Penang 2030 visions to become a family-focused, green and smart state that inspire the nation, and also committed to become a green and low-emission development city, to become a resilient city, to become an inclusive, equitable, and people-centered in terms of development, and also to become a competitive and smart city that can inspire the nations. So with that, we have set a target to become a carbon-neutral city by the year 2030. In Seberang Pride, we believe that if you need to achieve something, you need to have a KPI. So if you need to have a KPI, you need to have something that you can measure. So in terms of climate action, in terms of climate change, we believe that carbon calculation, that carbon emission is the key for us to control the climate impact in our city. So with that, we have come up with several Seberang Pride corporate KPIs. For example, we aspire to have recycling to increase by 70%. Currently, we have the highest record in Malaysia, 56.67% recycling rate. Second KPI is that we want to reduce our per capita solid waste generation from 1.6 kilogram to 0.8 kilogram per capita per day. Our current national average is around 1.5 kilogram. And last year in Seberang Pride is around 1.2 kilograms. So we still need to take serious action to achieve our target that is 0.8 kilogram per capita per day. and also to further reduce our greenhouse gas emission from 8 tons in 2016 to 4 tons in near future. So last year we have already calculated our carbon emission. In 2021, our carbon emission was around 5.2 tons of per capita emissions. In order for us to increase our energy mix in Seberang Perai, we are targeting to achieve at least 15% renewable energy by 2030. Last year, it was 3%, and we believe by the end of this year, we can achieve 4%. And next year, we need to have a very serious action plan so that we can achieve 15% by the year 2030. We want to convert all the street lights in Seberang Perai to become 100% LED and smart street lights. In terms of development, we are introducing Central Business District with TOD concept for new development area. And also in terms of waste management, we are looking into circular economy. Right, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see, these are examples of the projects that have been done in Seberang Perai in order for us to capitalize on the core benefits of climate actions. First of all, we have this underground water storage in residential area. Currently, we already engaged the design. We are in the design stage, and next year we will have the project to be executed. This is in central part of Seberang Perai. Second project is about the integration of flood pond recreational park for residential area for new development. This is what we are saying, that it's not only for mitigation effort, but it can be also for adaptation for the people that can utilize. This pond is actually can be used as a recreational park. It's a combination of a mitigation and adaptation process in Seberang Perai in order for us to tackle the climate issues. The third projects that we already implemented in Seberang Perai is integrated alerting flood water level system, or known as PAC. This system is actually to notify the nearby residential area if the water level of the monsoon rain achieving a certain alert level. Then we can alert the people so that they will know when they need to evacuate or what are the needed actions that can be taken into. Right. The next project is about main control panel weight-based system, where we use this system to control all the 24 pump houses in Seberang Perai. We are using EOT. We are using IoT for controlling our pump houses, where we are using the Spark system to alert us whether the water level are increased, and then we know which are the pump house that need to be turned on, and which are the pump house that need to be turned off, and what are the issues within Seberang Perai area. Then we can tackle the issues immediately, and also we can notify the people at the frequent level.
Sorry, we move to the conclusions. Thank you.
All right. So in conclusion, we have a lot of projects that are very beneficial for the people, and the projects that we are done actually. In order for us, first of all, to tackle the climate issues, and secondly, it benefit the people. Like for the example, the upcycle park. The upcycle park, we are using waste to convert as a park, and then it reduces the waste sent to landfill, and also it capitalize on we create a new park for the people, a new area for the people. All right. So. When we are tackling climate change, we are also helping the people to better their life, and also we are creating a new opportunity for the people. Like what I say, we have already increased our recycling rate at 52.16% in 2020 and 56% in 2021, and also we are already planted around 15,000 trees per year, which are a good effort for us to sequester our carbon emission. And at the same time, we are creating a lot of public space for the people.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you very much for illustrating all the achievements of Seberang Perai. I think you have really very ambitious targets in the waste and renewable energy and the street lighting. And so thank you very, very much. And also with this circularity, the circular economy aspects, I think are very important. And we can link them quite well also with the cultural topic. I would like now to go and hear from the city of Newcastle in Australia with the Mayor Notari Nelmes. She's ICLE Oceania Regional Executive Committee member, and she has a video statement for us. So let's have a look at the video.
Newcastle is Australia's 7th largest city and the largest regional area in Australia. We live on the traditional lands of the Awabakal and Worimi peoples, and we recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and continuing relationship with the land and waters. Newcastle, Australia is a very progressive council area. In the Hunter region, we are one of the most progressive local government areas taking strong action on climate change. We have championed renewable energy and climate action for over 25 years and continue that important work today with a commitment to achieving net zero emissions for our operations no later than 2030 and for the community by 2040. We have shown before we have what it takes to transition. In 1997, our largest employer, the BHP Steelworks, announced they were closing their doors, with thousands of jobs being lost within 2 years. Through this challenge, we adapted as a sustainable global city, and we continue to embrace these lessons to transition to our future of renewable energy. The climate emergency has become our key social and economic challenge of the 21st century. We are already witnessing the impacts of climate change on our everyday lives, with the more regular occurrence and severity of climate events such as bushfires, flooding, coastal erosion, rising sea levels, and the increased risk of disease and pandemic. As Lord Mayor, I'm proud that our city has addressed these challenges, which is why the City of Newcastle has signed up to the Malmo Commitment. I hope to work with you and your city in addressing these global challenges, building resilience in our people and communities, while also targeting net zero emissions.
So thank you to Mayor Nelmes to highlight this, the importance of the equitable and inclusive approach to becoming a net zero city for Newcastle, and also these challenges coming from the steel work that closed, and of course to create a new image for the city. I would like now to invite Anya Das, from the Indian Administrative Service, Executive Officer of the Baripada municipality in the state of Odisha in India. And I would like to ask you, how is Baripada municipality addressing the importance of engaging the community in responding to the current climate emergency? Thank you, Anya.
Hello to all the panelists and participants. So my name is Anya Das. I am an officer with the Indian Administrative Service, and I'm currently posted as Executive Officer in Baripada municipality. It's a town with less than 2 lakh population situated in the state of Odisha in India. So I'll straight away go to the point that what we are doing with respect to climate action and how we are ensuring that communities are participating in the process. So in the last 2 years, we have built about 695 rainwater harvesting structures. This year, we have constructed 415 structures, and last year, 280 structures. And all these structures were constructed by women self-help groups. So in total, 114 plus self-help groups were involved, and the expenditure incurred was 31.7 million rupees. So the big thing about this is that this was constructed just before the rains under Catch the Rain initiative of the state government. And the timely implementation of this program ensured that the rainwater was accumulated in these harvesting structures. And importantly, women groups did this. They were assisted by the municipality, but the work was totally done by them. And apart from the material component, the payment for the labor component also went to these women. So it really empowered them economically, socially, and they got this feeling that, yes, we can do this. So I would like to highlight few lessons that we took from this. The one is continuous engagement. Now, we cannot engage a part of the civil society for one project and then we can ask them to sleep. It doesn't work like that. You have to build every day, and then a point comes when they are the hard work is visible. We engage these self-help groups in everyday sanitation services. For example, two members of the SHG group go house to house for door-to-door collection. They ensure the segregation of the waste. They ensure that people are motivated to segregate and then give the waste. And then by this process, when this waste comes to the material recovering, recycling facility and material composting facility, we have 6 of these in our city. These centers are also handled by women self-help groups. So you see, there's this ecosystem of continuous engagement of the self-help groups. Apart from this, the second is encouragement, encouraging them by hand-holding and then scaling up their work. So when in the phase 1 of rainwater harvesting, we found that they could successfully construct 280 rainwater harvesting structures, we gave them a project to build a meeting room, a Mission Shakti meeting room, and a place where they will sit and they'll hold meetings, a 27 into 14 feet room worth 7.5 lakh rupees each. So this work order was not given to a contractor. This was not tendered. The women self-help group were told, we are giving you the work order and you construct it, and they constructed it within record time, like 2 months, 3 months, and the quality of construction is also very good. So they'll sit there, they'll deliberate, they'll discuss, and then I think after this structure comes up, I think their motivation has really reached the sky high, because they feel they can do anything. And the third point, I think, is the institutionalization. You need institutional backing of these groups. Like in Odisha, in my state, there is this department of Mission Shakti. This department handholds these Mission Shakti groups. It provides them with knowledge, with finance also. And these women are also engaged in other activities, like, let's say, some are goat rearing, some are into dairy, some are into mushroom farming. So these economic activities are also helped when this institution is there to protect them and to encourage them. And fourth, I think the main thing that I have understood working these few years is that finance. I think when a project is implemented locally, some part of it should be also contributed locally, because then the people get the feeling that this is our project. For example, door-to-door collection of waste, we try to include the contribution from the households. Each household has to contribute a sum. Similarly, in the collection of water, water supply rates are also being collected by these SHG women, house to house, they go and collect. So when you involve the community, I think a lot of what you're doing sustains. So I'll now go a bit rural. I couldn't just resist myself. I can't limit myself to the municipality. It will be a small small perspective then. In Odisha, we have like 350 one Suraksha Sangh, or you can say forest protection committee. So they are also into protecting the forest. So there's this case study of Itamundia, this 100 hectare of patch was degraded forest. So these communities helped in restoring the forest. So when they were asked what plants do you feel should be planted here, so they named fuel and fodder trees like Karanj, acacia, teak, have the names Milicia pinnata and Planaria arborea. So these are the trees which give you fuel, which give you fodder. And when these trees were planted, like 10,000 plus trees were planted, and the forest ecosystem has revived to a great extent. So I think this overall perspective of the state of Odisha, I want to give on an ending note, like we have 1,55,000 plus geographical area of our state, out of which 39.3% is under forest cover. And I think these initiatives of which we are taking for climate action, involving the community with us, will really help us to increase this forest cover when we go further down. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for Anya, for highlighting also the power of these women's group in a managerial role, but also in an operational role, and also in the ownership that was gained. So thank you very much for highlighting this. And with your intervention, we are reaching the end of this session. I would like to ask my colleagues if there are already some results available for the poll that we shared at the start. So what are the key elements of effective people-centered climate action? And we can see a big role of equity, of education, of participatory process in feminism. And perhaps listening is also another important one, and inclusiveness. So I think I can try to pull a little bit the thread of what has been said in this session. And I think that it emerged that the responses to the climate emergency, and this slide also shows it, are not really standard, but need to be tailored to the specific needs of the cities, of the regions, the towns, and the differences. Also, we were seeing with Hannah as the keynote speak in culture, in language, in living environment, in heritage, can also lead to have different expectation of life. And then what also struck me is that this people-centered approach plays a fundamental role in building trust and ensuring a more equitable and inclusive future. And we were seeing this moral urgency about the Rainforest Initiative. And also the participatory approaches, the bottom-up solutions, and the local community engagement. And this was visible in the Seberang Perai, but also in the Baripada example, or in Newcastle, and the specific role of the young that Juliette has so nicely highlighted. So I think with this, and also with the compromise and the mediation role that has been shown in the presentations, that also has a very central focus, I think we can slowly approach the end of this session. And I would like to thank you really so much, both the speakers and the attendees, for this active contribution. And the discussions don't need to stop just because this specific dialogue today is over, but the conversation can actually continue for similar dialogues for other time zones on both the state of the climate emergency, and also on the people-centered approach, and throughout the week in other workshops and plenaries and side events. So again, once again, thanks a lot, all the best, and goodbye.